Hi, I'm Miko Peled, and I'm speaking to you from Palestine House of Freedom here in Washington, D.C. Yesterday, we had a very strange visit here at Palestine House of Freedom. None other than the president and one other member of the organization Betar USA. We didn't know who they were when they came in, so they were invited in, we showed them around, and then they came to sit in my office and started to talk, and then they revealed who they actually were. Now, having been born and raised in Palestine, I know about Betar. People in this country don't necessarily understand just how vile they are, just how violent they are, and how dangerous they actually are as an organization. They established themselves in the United States in 2024, so they're rather new. But on their website, they claim that they say, we are loud, proud, aggressive, and unapologetically Zionist. They pride themselves in the fact that they disrupt events, violently disrupt events many times. They say that they have been working with the FBI to arrest and even deport pro-justice activists, pro-Palestine activists. And this organization is so extreme and so vile, their ideology is so horrifying that even the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which is a radical, pro-genocide, pro-apartheid Zionist organization, called Betar Extremist and distanced themselves from Betar. Betar, historically, was established in the early 20th century as a fascist Zionist organization, a right-wing, violent organization. And one of their objectives was to, and I quote, create a new identity, a new Jewish identity. No more the ugly, despicable Jew, but a handsome, fighting Jew. These are quotations. And at one point, their leader, their founder, Zev Jabotinsky, wrote that the Zionist is the opposite of a Jew. What that means, it's hard to say. Their objective politically has been to create a so-called Jewish state or a Zionist state on both banks of the Jordan River. So the map that they show of quote-unquote Israel has Palestine and the Kingdom of Jordan included as one country, as their country. They trained, throughout the 20th century, before 1948, they trained young Zionists to become terrorists, to engage in terrorist activities. They became quite well known for that. They are here in the United States now, and they want to make a name for themselves. They don't shy away from the ideology, the original ideology of Betar. They do not shy away from the fact that it is a zealot, fanatic organization and a zealot, fanatic ideology. And one of their claims is that their presence is needed because the Zionist organizations in this country don't do enough to protect Jews, don't do enough to speak for the apartheid state, for Israel, and therefore there needs to be a louder, more extremist organization, which of course is them. The history of their terrorist attacks goes back to the 1930s. Mostly, of course, targeted Palestinians, but they targeted Jews as well. In 1933, they assassinated one of the heads of the mainstream labor Zionist movement by the name of Chaim Arlozorov. They shot him on the beach in Jaffa because he brokered a deal with the Nazis to save 60,000 Jews, but then bring them to Palestine. And so for that, he was assassinated. They assassinated the British Secretary of State for the Middle East in 1944. In November of 1944 in Cairo. His stance on the issue of the Jewish state was not as, let's say, positive as they believed it should have been. His name was Lord Moyne, and he was a close friend and confidant of Winston Churchill. In 1948, another important figure that they assassinated on September 1948 in Jerusalem, Count Volker Bernadotte, who was the UN emissary to Palestine, trying to broker a deal between the Zionists and the Palestinians, and who believed strongly in the right of the Palestinian refugees to return. They assassinated him, they ambushed his convoy in Jerusalem and killed him and one of his aides. Bernadotte was a member of the Swedish royal family, and during World War II he was involved with the Red Cross, saving thousands of Jews from the Nazis. In 1946, in July, they committed a terrorist attack and blew up a huge part of the most iconic hotel in Jerusalem, the King David Hotel. It's quite well known. They killed over 90 people and hundreds were wounded. There were Palestinians there, there were Brits there, there were Jewish people there. Not that it matters, but close to 100 people were killed and, again, hundreds of wounded. The list of the terrorist attacks is too long to go over right now, but what is important to state here and worth taking a minute to understand is that throughout the 30s and up to 1948, their mode of operation was to place bombs in crowded marketplaces. They did this in Haifa several times, they did it in Jaffa, they did it in Jerusalem several times. This is what they were known for, killing hundreds of people, hundreds of civilians, wounding hundreds more. And they did this on a regular basis. They also attacked smaller institutions, cafes, restaurants, and so on. But their favorite was to place bombs in very, very crowded places to kill as many Palestinians. During 1948, they initiated the massacre, which is unfortunately quite well known, the massacre in the village of Dir Yassin on the outskirts of Jerusalem. This is a massacre that took place over 2 days. And the descriptions by some of the survivors and the descriptions of people who were there, just words cannot do them justice. It was such a horrific, horrific massacre. And then what they did after is they took the survivors and the children who survived and paraded them in trucks throughout Jerusalem. And then the children were just left alone near the old city of Jerusalem and then taken by the wonderful Hind Husseini who took care of them. But that's another story. So now they're here in the United States, an organization that is affiliated with the leaders of these terrorist groups and the ideology, this violent ideology. And so it's important to take note of that. It's important to know that they are in your face. It's important to know that they're a 501c3, even though they represent a clearly, decidedly violent ideology. So violent that even, like I said, other Zionist organizations want to distance themselves from them. So take care when they show up. Make sure you're prepared. This is one more step in the radicalization of Zionism here in the United States. Like I said, they were only established in 2024. They're here in Washington, D.C. I've seen them around coming and trying to disrupt events. We need to be aware and we need to understand that the other side is extremely violent, extremely fanatic, and will stop at nothing. Thank you.